So in the most recent video I ran into a couple issues. One, this thing dances all over the place when it's running. So I've got some pucks to make some feet for it, either corner. The second thing I ran into was with a gas feed to the carburetor overflows, so it seems that the needle valve is not being pushed up far enough by the float to cut the fuel supply off. So it just pisses everywhere all over the motor. And then the final issue was I didn't have a gasket for this. I couldn't get one locally, the proper part for it. So what I did was I picked up a couple exhaust gaskets of the same material for automotive use, and I'm just going to make one out of that. So I'm going to address those three problems today in hopes that I can get everything back together and we can fire this up and tune the carburetor so we can get it running nice. So I'm going to throw the feed on. I won't show you that because that's going to be boring for you guys, and then we'll move on to having a look at the carburetor. So just went ahead and popped the pucks on. I used a shim here because it wasn't completely flat, so now with the shim on it's good and solid. So now we're going to move over to the bench. Hopefully. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull our carburetor apart again and see if we can't figure out why it's leaking fuel. I've got a funny suspicion that it's the tab on the float, and it might need to be bent up a bit so it'll push the push the needle valve up where it belongs to block the fuel flow. But we won't know until we take it apart, so let's open her up. So we'll go ahead and pull the bowl, and I'm going to hold this upright because there's definitely still a bit of fuel in the bowl from when I had it running in the last one. But I'm pretty certain the problem is going to be with the float. Now I tested it previously, but that was just flipping the carb over, and that really doesn't simulate, you know, the carb maybe being on a bit of a slant, which is how it sits on the motor. It actually sits on with a bit of slant like this. And so I think that's what might be the case. So the needle valve isn't getting up where it needs to be. So plenty of fuel in there. Plenty of fuel. So what will happen is the fuel level will get, you see that protrude just a bit, the fuel level actually comes up over and it starts to leak out through here. And I've seen cases where it actually started coming out through these holes here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and in my manual look up what the float clearance should be on that, like how high they should come up, where level would be kind of thing, and then we'll go ahead and get it set up on this one. So in consulting the good book, we see that for our Cayenne PD13A carburetor, it's on this bike, blah 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 blah, float level 12.5 millimeters. So we're going to go ahead and check that now, and if it's not correct, we're going to correct it. So if I can get this to focus, you'll see that the float presses on this little needle right here, and that's what causes it to shut the fuel off. So it seems that when this is hooked up to the gas tank, that's not getting pushed down far enough into the I guess where the fuel comes into the carburetor from the fuel line. And so it just fills up, and then it starts gushing out through the overflows. So I just bent the tang here down a bit further so it'll contact the needle sooner and keep it pushed up. Now the one thing I noticed, because I did this previously before putting it on and getting it running, if the carb was upright, like straight up and down, well, if we had it flipped over properly, it was straight up and down, we were good. But if it tilted either side a bit, it started leaking. So I'm hoping this extra little bit of adjustment has fixed that. So I'm gonna get it back together and we're gonna test it out. Okay, so I'm gonna hook the carburetor up to the gas tank now, turn the gas on, we'll see if this is gonna leak or not. Okay, so you can see the gas is flowing into the carburetor. We'll give it enough time to fill the bowl up. I should probably use a bit smaller gas line. So you'll be cognizant if we get a leak around the where the fuel's feeding into the carburetor, because the fuel line isn't really tight on it. But that's not what I'm concerned about at this point. I'm just concerned to see if the bowl's going to fill up too much. It's going to overflow and start coming out of the carburetor everywhere. At this point, I think I'm going to say it's not going to leak. I'm going to put it back on the motor, put the gas tank on, and I'll hook it up again. We'll just see if it's going to continue to not leak. So I've gone ahead and hooked up my tank. I flicked the gas on. This stayed full of air, so what I did was I just loosened off the bowl drain. I let a bit of fuel go down through until the air went into the line. You might see the bubble that's there moving a little bit now. Maybe not, either way. I shut it back off. And it seems to me that it is no longer leaking. There is a tiny bit of stuff leaking here. But that's just because this fuel line is not tight. It's kind of loose. It's a bit too big for this application. It does seal enough so that it's not going to make a mess or anything. But so I think now that this much is working, the next step is going to be to get our gasket made up for the muffler. So I'm going to go ahead and bring you over to the bench and have a look at what I bought and how we're going to make up what we need. So as we saw in the previous video, there is a gasket that fits around this pipe and then under the muffler part that comes on over like this, so that when you clamp it, it clamps the gasket. This is a soft gasket, it crushes and it keeps it sealed up. There was nothing locally that I could find in stock. I had to order it, and it's going to be a special order because it's not in stock at the warehouses that the Honda dealership here gets their parts from. So what I did was I picked up a couple of these style automotive soft gaskets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up probably the smaller one first. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to make something that fits around this, the exact size. I'll probably test fit it and see if I can get the muffler piece over it. If not, I'll take it, flatten it a bit with a hammer because it's really malleable, and then we'll make up something that fits there. So let's have a look. So in trying to make use of those automotive exhaust gaskets and cutting them and trying to squat them, the steel that's inside these kind of just completely separates and it makes a big mess. So I had this wrapped around the pipe and tried to get it down to the muffler, and it just wouldn't cooperate. So I think I'm going to do at this stage is I'm going to pick up some muffler tape tomorrow, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this with muffler tape to the thickness of the part on the muffler where this goes into, and then when we clamp that tight, it should clamp tight to the muffler tape. So we'll give that a go in the morning. So today is tomorrow. I went and picked up some tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to wrap this to the thickness of what the gasket would be, and then we'll fit it into our muffler and see how it fits up with a clamp on it, see if we can get the clamp up tight, and if so, then we're going to go ahead and get the motor running. So it's essentially going to be 15 layers or so of this, so I'm not going to bore you with that. I'll bring it back when I got it built up wide enough so that it fits into the exhaust or the muffler. So I've built up my own little gasket there using the foil tape. I'm going to go ahead and get the muffler, put this in the muffler and see how it fits. So I went ahead and used a bit of tin foil, folded about the same width as this tape was. So the tape is down in the bottom part and it fits into this little bump here, kind of seals it up. The foil was there so that the clamp would clamp this piece of the muffler tight to the exhaust. So now you can see I can lift it up by there, it's pretty good. So now we're going to get this mounted up to the motor, and then we're going to kick the bike over and get it running again. So I went ahead and got the muffler mounted up. We're secure up here. Instead of running like a post or something back this way, having this real flimsy, I just cut off one of the pieces of 2x4 we were left over, that was left over when we built this. I just got it in under here, so I screwed it to the rig. This sits on top of it, and it's nice and sturdy now, so that should be good. It might rattle itself apart, you know, if I let it run for a long time, but it should be good. So now what I'm going to do is, since it really sucks out today, I've got this exhaust fan that I made up for my paint booth when I'm painting things. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this cardboard in the window, put this end over the end of the exhaust, plug it in, and that way I can run it indoors without worrying about killing myself. So, let's fire it up. So guys, that's going to be it for this one. We've got our motor running, idling half decent. So at this point, we're going to be looking at getting into some of the chassis work. So the frame is up overhead, primed and ready for paint. So we're going to be painting the frame, the swing arm, things like the pegs and stuff. We'll clean up with the sandblaster and get those primed and painted as well. And then we're going to look at getting into rebuilding our forks and our rear shocks. But ultimately, once we get those few things done and then the wheels cleaned up and put on, we've got ourselves a roller and we can start putting pieces back on the bike. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.